Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Service to the Sacred Summit. I'm here with Taffan Sharif, who is a Kurdish human rights activist living and working in Europe right now. Taffan, thank you so much for being here. I was so grateful and surprised after reaching out that you had the time to connect with us. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing and how you started doing it?
Thank you so much, Karen. Well, I'm happy to be a part of it. And I can just simply start off by telling the story that I tell most of the time when someone asks me, how did you start? And you can probably read this in a lot of my interviews online as well, where I share my story about how we were political refugees and the deadly route that we had to do in order to get to safety to Europe, just like a lot of many other Kurds had to do back in the 90s. There was a civil war up and coming, and we were already in war. The Kurdish region in Iraq was already in war with the Baath regime, and the then dictator Saddam Hussein tried to attempt genocide and actually did on the Kurds, so we had to flee simply, and there was no way we could stay in the region any longer. We were denied our identity. It was simply because we were Kurds. We were denied our existence, language, everything. It was not allowed to exist. And my father simply sold everything we had and sent me and my mother and my sister away. And you might read a lot in the news about how people come to Europe and to other parts of the world today as refugees, and we took the same deadly route as people do today, hiding in trucks, being on these really small rubber boats, and so on. It's obviously not clear memories that I still carry with myself, but those incidents and that time of my life I still carry that with me, thanks to my mom. She still, even today, I'm 22 years old, and she still shares with me stories about what happened during certain times, how she was sexually harassed because she was a woman alone. Doing this journey was really, really dangerous, and with two children, both of us being sisters and girls, it was really difficult for us. A lot of times my mom just simply had to do what she had to do in order for us to survive. We got to Europe eventually. My father stayed in Kurdistan and became what we call in Kurdish a Peshmerga, which is also a very famous expression now. I think in media, it's become very famous. People know about it, and it's basically, Peshmerga means someone who faces death, literally. So you go in with the intention of serving your country and your people, knowing that you're facing death as a Kurd. And he did that, and although he was shot in the war he still has severe damages from that war and his time there, we managed to reunite together eventually, and we reunited in Malmö, Sweden. That became my home. That city became the town who kind of shaped me, and I'm very grateful for that, because a lot of incidents throughout my youth made me become the woman I am today.
Yeah, so you're living in Sweden now, and I know I did some reading, and it hasn't always been easy in Sweden, though. There's been a lot of racism. You were attacked. Is that true? Can you tell us about how you've gotten through all of
that? Ever since I started my activism, I was low-key starting when I was 16, not telling my parents, my then friends and surroundings about what I was interested in, what I wanted to do, because I was scared that I was too different, or it was simply not something you would be interested in back then with those people I was hanging with. And I didn't know if my parents would understand as well. But throughout the years since I've been 16, there's been a lot of ups and downs, and people always ask me what was the hardest thing throughout all of this work that you've done, and I didn't think about it then or as it happened, but receiving threats, just like online threats, cyberbullying, these things, when you're so public and you just share your work so publicly with people and the world, I guess it's kind of, people say, well, you have to deal with it because that's what comes with the work if you're going to be so public. And I do agree. You have to, I guess, accept the entire package, and everyone are entitled to their own opinions. But I don't think it's okay for people to actually threaten each other. And although I used to receive a lot of those emails and comments, threat emails and comments from different religious minorities or groups or men, older men in Kurdistan, for instance, because I started working with feminism in the Middle East, in Kurdistan, when I was 18. That's how I actually started really implementing my activism in my society. And I guess the response was very different, and not what I expected. A lot of young girls obviously supported me. They were very happy to support me, and I was very happy to have their support. But there was a large group of people who were ready to come to attack me and just cyberbully me and sending me threats. And as the time went on, I didn't think about it so much. But recently, going back to last year's incident where I was attacked and sexually harassed by 2 younger men here in Sweden, someone actually took those words and those threats and put it into action. And I didn't think that was going to happen. So that was why I've been neglecting it all those years. I never even paid attention to it. It was not a big deal to me. But those comments, those emails, that's always kind of been there. So I hate to say it, and it's really sad to say it. It's bad to even say it, but it became normal to me. So it was nothing to actually react to. But I was just simply out on a summer walk. Just recently moved to a new town to move my studies here in Karlstad. And it was the exact same day that I moved back here, and I was coming back to be here simply in Karlstad. And I was just out on a walk. It was summer. It's really not dark here during summers until it's like 11, or even sometimes like between 11 and 12. It's still not too dark. So it was around 10-ish, I think. I was out just having a walk with my headphones in and listening to music, and the incident just took place all of a sudden out of nowhere. I was attacked from behind, and I was stoned, and I was bleeding afterwards. I managed to get out of the situation. And I don't think, and I still don't believe, as I've told in interviews, I don't believe the intentions of one of them was not to actually physically hurt me. It didn't seem like that. One of them was very passive and was really ready to leave. And I recall him saying, let's run, someone's going to hear us," because I was obviously making noises and screaming. And he picked up a rock and threw it on my head, and I was bleeding from my head, and then they ran away. After that, I managed to run away because I was obviously not very far from my home. So this was in the area that I still live in right now. The incident took place. I don't think it I did not let it define me. And I remember going on Facebook literally just hours after that, and the police they came and we talked, and they said, we'd appreciate if you'd help us finding these 2 men. We know you have a lot of people on your social media, a lot of people that follow your work. If you could go out and tell them about how they looked, if anyone recognizes them, and so on. And so I did. And the response was very interesting, although the majority was very supporting and sending lots of love and support. There was actually a group of people, surprisingly men, but there was also a group of people, including women as well, who were just ready to attack me still, even then and there, calling me, you're not, why are you not a victim? How come you're on Facebook and you have the energy to write about such incident just hours after it happened? We don't believe you. You're lying. Because if this would have happened to anyone, you would have been this and this and this. You wouldn't have the energy or the courage to do it.
Oh.
I just felt like that's not going to be me. I decide how I'm going to handle whatever happens.
Yeah, you're so strong, Taffan. And I mean, there is this ancient lineage of violence against women, and I believe that a lot of women have this, internal fear of speaking up or speaking out or listening to their heart, because the violence, the threat of violence is so real. And so you're experiencing kind of like that verbal violence, but also that physical violence as well, not to mention what you went through as a child. So I guess what message do you have for women, to get through those fears of not publicity, for example, but but more like sharing from their heart and like doing what their heart really wants them to do, even though it's so scary.
Well, I think that personally for me, I know that I have a lot of high school friends or friends from my childhood. I basically don't have, I think I speak to 3 of my friends from Malmö, the town that I was raised in and I lived in my entire life, because I basically cut ties with everyone once I moved back to Kurdistan when I was 18. And I think a lot of those people that I've cut ties with today are probably looking at my journey throughout the years and go, but she was never like that in school. She never spoke about these interests. She never said that she wanted to do these things. This is also fake. This is not her and whatnot. And I can understand that. But at the same time, that was always in me, but I never dared to actually express it. I didn't have that support system, obviously, that I have today. And I didn't know where it was going to take me. But I think the first step towards actually daring to do what I want to do was to cut ties with those people who keep like just being so exhausting to me in my surrounding, never actually letting me be myself, never letting me express myself in the way that I want to. That was my first step. And then I went to law school and I basically dropped out of law school after 3 months when I realized this is not what I want to do. And that's when I was 18 and I moved back to Kurdistan and started working with feminism there. And there was really nothing that really triggered me to do this and starting. I simply had a conversation with one of my uncles. Now, remind you that honor culture is really big in Kurdistan, especially not in all cases, not in all families, but it's extremely big, especially in cases where you come from a certain family with a certain name to live up to, a certain history to live up to. Obviously, my parents did not carry those values with them back to Sweden, but all my relatives that are in Kurdistan, they made sure I was aware of those values and that honor culture, so to speak. And I remember speaking to one of my uncles about women in Kurdistan and how come I never got to swim in a bikini when I was 11 when we were in Kurdistan. Do you remember that picnic? You know, just talking. And I think he's one of the most enlightened and intelligent men I've met. And he enlightened me and informed me about women in Kurdish history. And that conversation inspired me. And I really didn't do much than just staying up that night and writing an article about feminism in Kurdistan. That was all. And from there, everything just happened so quickly. Like, I knew I got a response. I knew I could reach out to people. I knew it reached people. So obviously, I'm doing something good, even if the responses are not what you expect it to be. But just know that if you actually cleanse your mind and cleanse yourself from everything that is draining and everything that is just keep pulling you down, if it's people, if it's habits, hobbies, interests, anything that doesn't do good for you, if you just one day wake up, it's possible to just one day wake up and cut those things off of entirely. That's exactly what I did. Like, my journey would just happen so quickly. It was nothing that I decided to do for a long period of time. I never knew I was going to end up where I am today. You just have to let go and do. That's like my only message. And whatever comes your way, don't ever have the fear of letting society, letting stigmas, letting men, women, people, anywhere, your family, whoever it could be, define you or what happens during your journey. You define yourself during your own journey, not the obstacles that you face. The obstacles that you face are only going to help you to tackle the next one better, but it doesn't define you or your work.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is that you had to let go, not only what other people think about you, but the people who maybe were holding you back, friends or people that you couldn't be yourself around. And I just looked at your Instagram and I saw that you were working with, was it British Parliament, or there was a group where you were working with women on the contraceptive and issues around pro-choice. So it's like, once maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, but once we really shed what is holding us back, we are going to be surrounded and supported by the connections that we really need to keep growing. So has that been true for you?
Oh, definitely. I lost so much, but really wasn't lost because I gained the support system that I have today.
Mm-hmm.
And although I know it's not the same journey for everyone and it takes its time, but it takes patience and it takes own understanding and own self-love and self-respect as well. And I'm not talking about support and love from family. That's not what you have to have. That's in my case, that was not the case in the beginning at all. But that is very true. And you kind of attract, because, for instance, these are my areas of interests: human rights, women's rights, young leadership, and social entrepreneurism. Those things are what I'm passionate about today. And so I'm surrounding myself automatically with those kind of people and that network, and those people support me in return because they have the same interests as I have. So I think that kind of weighs out a little bit. Regarding that post, I think you have seen the discussion and the conference we had at the European Parliament.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, if it wasn't for these kind of conferences and events, they have played a huge part in making me who I am and doing what I do. Because the people that you actually meet, and that's the thing, I lost a lot of people from where I came from, but the people that I know today, my best friend, I have a best friend living in South Africa, the other one is in London, and one is in Texas. So I'm like, how did I end up with these connections, with forming these like the support that they give me? It's I don't think any of the people back then could have given me the same support that I have today. So it's just simply a win.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. So tell us a little bit about the work that you're actually doing. I know that right now you're focusing on refugee rights, but maybe there's things that I don't even know about. So what does life look like for you right now?
I promise you it's not as exciting as you might think. People are always like, how do you manage to carry out all of the things that you do? But really, I study politics and international relations. And also I run my foundation, which finances integration project in Sweden and helps with necessities for women and children at refugee camps in Kurdistan. So I basically just plan up projects. It's easy for me to say because it's kind of my job, so it's very easy for me and I think it's fun. Just arrange projects and manage them, of course, and that's I think what takes up most of my time. I do write a lot, and I think that's been one of my ways to create the audience for myself that I have. That's one of the ways for me to express myself. And my father, he always tells me, he used to tell me a lot more when I was a child, and I love to write and draw things. He said, I know you're going to walk in my footsteps. I fought with the gun, but I know you're going to fight with your pen and paper. And that's kind of how it's been since I started, because I did start with writing this article about feminism in Kurdistan, and it was like the most read on the website ever, and it is still, and it was translated into different languages, and all of a sudden everyone read it. So my paper and pen definitely been my tool to reach out to people and grow. Yeah, and I think that that specific part of me, that's a big part of me, the writing part and expressing myself, because I am very opinionated, but there's nothing wrong in being an opinionated. And that's the thing, a lot of people associate with something bad as if you're supposed to have a certain opinion and that's that, and you have to go with everyone else thinks and believes. That's not the case. And I want girls, guys, anyone who sees this to know that that's not the case. Be opinionated and have your own voice, because having a voice is pretty beautiful, and being able to express that is even more beautiful, I think, because people can take part of that. But I do, before I came back to Sweden to continue my studies, I did live in Kurdistan for 3 years, working with mainly women there in the beginning. And then as the refugee crisis hit Kurdistan a lot worse, I started getting involved in that. I think my daily life in Kurdistan was a lot more interesting and a lot of more things happening for me there, because obviously the help was needed, and I could directly assist, and I could directly do and act. So my activism was kind of different there. But I just felt like I need to do something for myself, and that was actually just getting my degree and have an academic background. I thought that was important if I want to continue on a very more professional level.
Right. Yeah. And do you have like a spiritual practice or just religious background or just personal connection that has supported you through your work?
It's an interesting question because I'm not very spiritual of myself, but I went through a spiritual path in order to find that in myself.
Mm.
I was born Muslim, and in my family, we were not really religious, like we were not really practicing. I didn't grow up with my parents praying 5 times a day or going to the mosque or reading the Quran. Sometimes I could hear my mom listening to the Quran. My mom used to fast during Ramadan, these things very briefly, but nothing that it was like indoctrinated in me. And my parents never actually tried to put anything into us or force us into anything until we were actually growing up and could decide for ourselves. And I'm very happy they did that because as a child, that was all that I knew. That was right for me. Being a Muslim and identifying myself to that religion was what I thought was correct.
Mm-hmm.
Until I had some rebellious period in my life when I was about 14. I remember questioning certain things in life, but I was not allowed because God doesn't allow you to question those things, or else you'll go to hell. That was what I believed, for an instance, as a child. So I never dared to ask myself certain things or criticize or just wanting to know more. I kind of limited myself. That doesn't go obviously for everyone. That was, in my case, it was like that. And I think that pushed me towards daring to think differently in a way that I wanted to. Not that anyone had forced me to, not in a way that was expected of me.
Yeah.
So what I did was I didn't feel comfortable questioning my religion that I was so comfortable with, and I identified myself with my entire childhood. So I remember Ramadan came up and I started fasting and I started praying 5 times a day. And I went through this time of really, really connecting with a spiritual, I guess you could say, just a spiritual part of myself that I knew was there, but I connected it with my religion. But I realized as I went on, I'm forcing something, and you cannot force a force in yourself. You cannot force something to be connected to something that it's not supposed to. I knew that what I carried could not be identified with that. I knew that it was my own voice. It was something different. It was something aside of that. And I simply just grew out of it and came out of it very different than I think a lot of people around me expected. I wouldn't say it's not accepted to be an atheist in Kurdistan, but it's still a lot of hot debates and discussions regarding that, if it should be more accepted or not. Or a lot of young people don't dare to come out as atheists, for instance. I've gotten a lot of messages like that, and I simply just tell them about my journey. And it doesn't look like that for everyone, obviously. It's a very personal thing when it comes to spiritual paths and what you believe in and what you want to connect to. And I simply decided to connect with myself. That's what happened.
Beautiful. Yeah. A really recurring theme in these interviews with the title Service to the Sacred has been, that there's a service that we need to give to ourselves, before we can give so much to others. So what I'm hearing you say is that aside from your religious background and spiritual background, that learning how to connect with yourself and maybe to start listening to those voices that were questioning things early on or telling you, to kind of do a certain thing is how you have grown into who you are right now. Would you say that that's true?
Absolutely. I don't think, no, I know for a fact that I didn't have a lot of self-love or just any confidence when I was a child. Even in my teenage years, I always tried to fit in, but never really quite did somehow. And I never really surrounded myself with those people that I wanted to and that I have today. My life has just so dramatically changed when I come. Like, if you would have asked me, 15-year-old Taffan, would you see yourself as a 22-year-old like this? I wouldn't believe you. But it really came down to this is who you are. You have something inside of you that tells you something different. There's just this drive, this ambition, and there's just something that constantly tells you this is not you and this is not right. So because it didn't feel right, I could not continue with it, but I continued with myself. And before I could connect with any other spiritual path after that, I had to be connected and loved with myself.
Yeah, it's beautiful. This one of the symbols for this summit is like a rose, and what I'm just thinking about right now is how we never know how it is that we're going to bloom in the world. We never know when, we never know how. It's like you could have a rose bush and they each look so different. And if we try to put ourselves in like a little box of what other people are telling us or how that rose is growing next to us, it's like, then we're not going to, I guess, achieve our full expression, which is so natural and should be so, maybe not easy, but natural is kind of the word that is coming up. So when I'm thinking about your journey, it's like maybe you were expected, to go one direction, but through like being able to go so deep inside, that now you are blooming in this beautiful way. What do you think?
I definitely think that's a very beautiful symbol and very symbolic to what you're saying. I remember I never felt like a rose when I was younger. I could never see myself as a beautiful red rose. But I think I can probably say that I can see myself as a beautiful red rose today with a lot of thorns, because I know that I have more to me than just the beauty outside or what people see of me outside. But I liked something stood out to me of what you said is sometimes people expect you to go in a certain direction. And in my case, that was it. And it's important for you to bloom naturally in the way that you want to, so you're not restricted to anything that decides how you're supposed to bloom. And that is very beautifully well put and said. I do believe that if you're never as free as when you stop living to impress other people. People, I sometimes can get comments on very disturbing comments on, you wear too much makeup, but you don't look like the type of girl that would be politically active or do this kind of work. And I'm like, but what is the definition of a girl who does this kind of work? Like, who are you to decide how I'm supposed to look? If I do my makeup, I love that. That's like a secret hobby that I have for myself, not for you or for anyone else to carry out or to take part of. It's something that I do for myself because I get satisfaction out of it. As simple as that. It's nothing else. And I don't think it's right for anyone else to judge or try to come and direct you in which way you should bloom, as you're saying. So.
Yeah, I'm glad that you spoke to that. I mean, there's so many things. There's so much just about the way we look and the way we present ourselves in the world that is supposed to define who we're supposed to be. So for you, the first thing someone probably notices about you is that you're, of Middle Eastern background, right? And so then that already is going to make people think a certain thing about you. How do you push through that? I mean, especially with all of the intensity going on right now, with the United States and with Muslim refugees and everything that's going on. I mean, how are you getting through all of this?
I'm sad in general. Like, I had a political depression towards 2016, at the ending of 2016. I was just like thinking, where's the world going? It was very difficult to watch and witness. And I feel for everyone affected by, I was affected by the ban as well. Not that I had plans on traveling to America, but if I would, or had a ticket for a conference event or whatever, I wouldn't have been able to go because I do have double citizenship. And at my passport, it just says I'm born in Kurdistan, Iraq. So I think that it's just a part of what's become normalized today. And it's really sad to say, just as I've during a period accepted the threats that I received and the cyberbullying that I experienced. I think it's just becoming so accepting and normal to people to have these values, to feel this way about certain groups or people with a different background. I'm not Muslim myself, but I feel for people who are affected, because I'm a part of that group, even if I'm Muslim or not, because I'm Middle Eastern.
Right.
My last name is very different from yours. So people are going to wonder where you're from, what's your story, are you Muslim, do you do this, why aren't you wearing a headscarf? All of these things are just, it's so frustrating to witness. It's sad to see. I think one of the things an experience that got me through the hate and the critics and all of the negative stuff. I remember after I wrote that article about feminism in Kurdistan, I posted a video on my Facebook, which went viral, and I took it down because I just couldn't handle all the discussions in the comment sections. But it's already out there, and someone posted it on YouTube, and it has like hundreds of thousands of views now. And a friend of mine recently sent me the link and said, "Do you know that this video is up of you on YouTube with these many views?" And I was like, "No." And I was interested in seeing who posted it, but I don't know why I was interested to actually check the comment sections, which was really stupid. Because when I checked, there's literally about 80% men sexualizing me in the comment section, not commenting on the fact that I discuss politics and the humanitarian crisis in Kurdistan with the Yazidis, religious minority that aren't Muslim or Christian, but they are facing a genocide as we speak right now. And I remember that incident took place, I think it was in August 2014, and no one is commenting about what I'm saying and trying to get out there and how people can help and how you can make a difference and anything. In the people are simply focusing on the outer part of me, sexualizing every single disgusting way you can imagine. The comments are they're just horrible to read. And when I saw that, the only thing that I felt was pure frustration. But I like to take frustration and anger and turn it into a positive spirit inside of myself that I carry to carry out my work, simply. That's what I do. And I encourage everyone else to try to do that as well, as hard as it is. When you're mad, frustrated, anything, don't spend time on bad energy. It doesn't give you really much. Of course, it's okay to feel down for a moment, but don't let that continue in your daily life.
Yeah, I'm glad you spoke to that. First of all, thank you. I've never heard the term political depression before, because I absolutely experienced that too. And that's kind of how this summit was born. Being like, okay, how are these activists handling this? How are these, women who are spiritual leaders handling this? What can we learn from them? So thank you for just stating that. Okay, political depression, and we all probably go through it at different times in our lives. But the other thing is, so there's so much anger and there's so much frustration. And I was just reading a Buddhist article yesterday that was saying, anger is pure energy, and it's what we do with that energy, which is, kind of determines like how far along we are in our awareness. So I'm noticing that there's so much outrage. That's kind of like the first reaction to something like the Muslim ban, things like this. I wonder, so first of all, we can probably both just normalize that for people. Like, okay, that's so normal to get that angry. And then I guess, do you have any advice for how to transfer the energy into something like activism or self-care, self-love? Because I think that it is that transfer of energy, and the anger is okay. So maybe I'll just pass that ball to you. And what comes up for you?
As we speak about these types of emotions, something comes to my mind, and I actually haven't spoke to anyone like openly or publicly about it, but I've been diagnosed with depression previously in my life when I was younger, but last year I was diagnosed with depression again during May, and no one knows about this. And I think that people who follow me on social media would never believe this or think that about me, because I'm very good at presenting a very different side of me. Not different, it is who I am, but I never let the bad portray on the outside. I guess I was just too stubborn, or I was too embarrassed simply, because I know that I knew that I know that I have a lot of younger girls who do look up to me. I really just don't want to seem like a weak point. But what happened was, during about 6 months, I'd say, less than 6 months, I was in this depression, and the only way, as I went to therapy and got treatment, I realized suddenly, during a trip to Cambodia that I did, that if I look back at the time, from that moment that I felt down and depressed and angry and sad and all these emotions, until now, I've made 0 developments. I've done absolutely nothing, like nothing. It hasn't contributed anything good in my life. Those emotions didn't do any good for me. They didn't help me with my studies. They didn't help me in my activism and my values and in expressing myself. Nothing. It simply was just draining and exhausting for me to feel like that. And that experience in itself, and my previous experiences from that, has helped me to believe that I know whenever I do feel down, it's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to be mad. It's okay to feel all these emotions or frustrations. But I know that I cannot allow myself to stay in that for too long, because it's not going to contribute with any good anyways. That's what I realized. So I quickly tried to turn that around. The incident that happened last summer, when these 2 men attacked me, and a lot of people expected me to act as a victim and be very sad and be very down. I refused to let that happen, because it was not going to do anything for me. Of course, I was shook and very, very upset for a few days. But instead of disappearing from social media, I arranged self-defense courses for newly arrived women, with women here in town, and they loved it. I just turned it out into something positive. So something good came out of the incident, and I try to think of that in every bad situation I am. And I literally live by this sentence, because I've learned, and it is, I'm going to say it in Kurdish because I want to, and then I'll explain what it is.
Please.
Hamu nakhoshiyek katia, which means all sad times are just they're just for a moment. They're just there just for a small moment. It passes. This too will pass. It will pass. If it's whatever's good or bad, it will pass. So whenever you feel like you're down and you just feel so beaten up, and you know that if it's a political depression, if it's a depression, or if you just feel down, if you have anxiety, anything, just know that it's okay to feel like that, and you shouldn't be ashamed. But just know that I promise you, if you try to find some energy from somewhere, which can be hard when you're in there, I know, but if you try to at least day by day slowly strive towards just taking that energy and those emotions and turning it into something positive, you will instantly feel so much better, and I promise you wonders will happen.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Thank you so much for that story, for that vulnerability. It's so important. I think that the women who look up to you know that there's so many sides to our experiences, and that all emotions go along with leadership, or with activism, or with just finding out what it means for you to bloom. And it's like the seasons. We have seasons where we have to shut down a little bit, and we have seasons where we're going to be more active, where we take that energy right from the sunlight or the soil or whatever it is, and we are able to give back again. So I really appreciate you telling that story.
Thank you.
Yeah, really beautiful. Thank you so much. There was something that was coming up that I wanted to ask you about, or just mention about, the impermanence of our emotions. Thank you for speaking to that. That's also really important. I mean, that goes, I think, for our personal emotions, but also for these situations that are going on politically. It's like they're impermanent, but they could do so much damage. So even though we might have a broken heart, or we might feel down or a little, low energy, that there are ways that we can uniquely make an impact. And you are really showing us how to do that. You are just all over the board with these projects. So it's so inspiring. It's so inspiring. So what I'm getting from you is this message of, regardless of the negative emotions, there are still ways that we can transmute it and give back to ourselves, give back to others. That's always available to us. Would you say that's kind of what you're communicating?
Absolutely. I think whenever you do feel those really draining emotions in a bad way, it's important to understand that it's not doing so much for you in the long haul. I don't want to take away the importance of actually daring to feel, and the importance of, I have my cry days. I have days where I just totally break down, like maybe once every after 2 months, I cry, just break down all of a sudden for no reason. And it's not just because I'm a woman or a girl or anything like that. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. Sometimes things do get emotional, and when you have a hectic daily life and routine, you don't always get the opportunity to stop and feel certain emotions. So I just think it's important for you to allow yourself to feel all emotions that you want to feel, and no one can tell you that you shouldn't, or that you should be ashamed of feeling this way. But just know that it doesn't give you as much as it will give you when you take those emotions and that energy and put it into something bigger and better and more beautiful, because you'll bloom and grow with that. That's your work right there. When I see these women taking this self-defense course, just like newly arrived from Middle East, and just being with these women from this town, they just love it. And I just look at their faces, they're smiling and they're happy and they're kicking ass literally and just having so much fun. And I know that came from my work and my emotions. That's me right there.
Wow. Wow. That's so beautiful. Yeah. Imagine what the world would be like if we all had the skills to transmute our trauma and use that almost as a responsibility to make the world more beautiful and the world more safe. So yeah, thank you so much for showing us how to do that. It's really an honor, and it's really humbling and inspiring. Yeah. So why don't you, before we say goodbye, just kind of tell us, how can we support you? How can we find more of your work? Where would you direct us?
I'm not going to say I want you to donate to my foundation. I'm not going to say donate to big organizations. You can do that if you'd like to. But I believe that the bigger works do starts with individuals themselves. So my messages for especially young girls is to always know that your dreams and your goals, they're always valid. And as long as you learn to love yourself first, and you learn to be in tune with your emotions and who you are, simply finding your own identity, because obviously growing up I had a lot of difficulties identifying myself with being Kurdish, Swedish. I was bullied in school for being Kurdish, for instance, just all of these issues. And then I was Muslim, and then I was not. It can be very confusing, and life is not an easy road, and everything doesn't come easily. And being able to take a trauma or something, an incident that's been very exhausting and draining for you, emotionally draining, cannot always be easy, and taking that and making it into something good. I know that in the journey, you will have a lot of more probably downfalls before you do start to learn and master the power and just knowing about how to put your positive emotions into your work. Because once you see and you get receipts, and what I mean receipts is like when you see results, then okay, then I can continue. Then I know that I can trust my guts and I can trust my emotions. And I know if I do it this way, something better comes out of it. So I want people obviously to start with themselves before they start with anything. And I do strongly believe, and this sounds somewhat political, but I do strongly believe that young people and the youth of a country is probably the most important and one of the greatest investments a country can make, simply investing in their youth and empowering them in all kind of ways. And just do something good in life, no matter what it is. It could be for your own good, your family, the society. You don't have to go out and save the world. Everyone's not meant to do that, and no one can tell you if you're meant to do that or not. Just value the life that you have and do something in it. you don't have to do something big. It can be as big as you want it to be. But simply start with yourself. It all starts with you. And of course, share human values with people that you know, spread love and democratic values and positivity, and do not spread alternative facts in your surroundings. You know, simple things in your daily life that can help prevent racism and right extremists grow, as we've seen these kind of developments all over the world recently. And also to dare to criticize, I'd say. Dare to criticize, if it's media, if it's an incident, or if it's yourself, it's someone in your surrounding. Always dare to criticize. When you dare to do that, I think you kind of come out of a certain box and you see things differently and experience things differently, and you can act differently. That's what happened in my case. I started thinking, I started criticizing certain things, and I started living my life a different way.
Mm-hmm. Wow, so much wisdom, Taffan. Thank you so much for everything.
I feel like it's everything is all over the place. It's so. I hope you're happy with the answers, and everyone else who are watching happy with what they've heard. And I'm sorry if there's any confusions or if anyone, that's to confuse anyone or to tell you what to do. Know that you're free, and you were born free, and you should live free as well.
Oh, that's so beautiful. You were born free and you should live free. I feel like that is what you're teaching us, all this work you're doing with refugees and populations of people who are oppressed, and we need more and more women like you to be doing that. So thank you so much for all this time that you spent with us. And we look forward to seeing everything that you're doing. You're like a little rosebud, you know, you're just getting started. So on behalf of all of the listeners and behalf of the world, and you just keep going. We love to see what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.